So, like, the whole kind of, like, podcast echo chamber and industry, I think, kind of feeds off of one another in a lot of good ways, but also in, like, some shitty ways, where it's like, hey, check out my podcast. Hey, do free shit for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want to do the work to, like, promote it, build an audience, so I'm just, like, going to piggyback off of you.
Yeah,
and like I don't want to. I earnestly like don't want to do that.
People see the Rogan effect, where guys go on with 60,000 Twitter
exactly
followers,
right.
and then the next day they have 250,000. The next day they have 500,000.
Exactly.
And people want to atomize that, right? They want to bring it down to whatever particular field that they're working on in new media. Yeah, no, it's a good thing to avoid. It's like a new nepotism.
I don't mind it if it's organic,
right?
You know, like so one of the best examples of this, I think, is like the I will mention Jordan Peterson on every fucking episode, but that really like Peterson happened because of Rogan. You know, like that's where he blew up.
Yeah,
He blew up.
He hit the Rogan sphere when it was at critical mass.
Exactly.
When it had peaked, right?
Correct.
Like if he had hit the Rogan sphere in the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, it would have been probably still big, but not as big as
no,
it
it wouldn't have
it peaked, and then now it's gone down.
Yeah,
the Spotify switch, but he hit it at critical mass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would argue that that's an example. That's like a great example of that, like organic growth. You know what I mean? Like, so Rogan has him on when he's going through the Bill C-16 stuff in Canada. I think there was a mutual
viral videos coming out.
Yeah, and I think he had a mutual friendship. Peterson and Gad Saad, I believe, had a mutual friendship before, and Gad Saad had a relationship with Rogan. So it was like, oh, I'm going to get this Peterson guy on. He does well, and he says the things that resonate on the Rogan show, and then it kind of takes off from there. You know, so that's obviously like one of the better examples. I think all those guys, like you said, the Rogan sphere is the biggest example of it. But what I kind of want to do with this, obviously, is I'm not that interested in big, huge listenership and audience. That would be good.
Yeah.
And I don't not want that.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in a smaller, more engaged.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we believe in what we're talking about, right? And these conversations are important, right? And I think we went into this knowing we weren't going to get a ton of views to start out because we're just two guys talking on the internet, right? And that's fine. It would be great if it blew up, but that's not really the point of why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just I like to think that after the bombs fall and some people dig up your broken computer and plug it in, they'll be like, oh, here were two citizens during the collapse.
Yeah. There's part of that.
And they use it as the same way they find journals.
The time capsule.
Yeah, they find the same way from journals from towns in Albania that were wiped out by the Nazis.
Yeah,
some shit. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it.
There's so anyway, so that was cool. So I think I'd like to have and I also there's a piece of me that's I'm a fan of certain people's work, and if they were a fan of my work, I use the term work loosely, that would just be cool. It's that's a cool thing, and this is stupid and whatever, but it'd be like if whoever, if you're a big fan of Eddie Vedder, they're listening, they come to see your band play. It's oh, that's cool, that's a cool thing. It's not going to mean that you're going to necessarily blow up and be huge and whatever, but it's that's kind of cool. That's a thing that I would like. Now also there's the side effect of the circles and the growing up and that thing's good. But anyway, so we have more distribution. It's also why I wanted to start with so we're at 5 episodes, I guess.
Yeah, we got 5 up.
So it's why I want to also have a bigger library.
Yeah.
Because so maybe this is, do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do instead of listening to the radio now.
When you, definitely. Yeah. When you find a new podcast, do you start from current and move forward? Or do you move through the library?
I find a lot of people go straight through. Because I'm really into current events and culture and politics, I find it hard to watch old episodes of things.
Sure.
Because it's if it's a comedy podcast, I can watch an episode from 2 or 3 years ago and it doesn't matter because it's still funny. But with most of the stuff I watch, if it's not from the last like few months, I probably won't watch it.
Yeah, and that's so.
Even if it's something I really like,
right?
I might go check out the playlists that they might have to see if there's like anything specific that I would want to run through. But I usually keep it pretty current.
So me too. Although there are the podcast that I was just talking about, Quantum Week that is an evergreen podcast because the purpose of the show is about the shtick is, and I actually don't. I kind of hate like shticky stuff, except for this.
Right.
Is that they pick a random week in a random year and they review the number one movie and the number one song at the time. So they'll go to 1990. I'm trying to think what the last one was. They'll go to like 1997 and it'll be like I forget the specific ones, but it'll be like they'll do Fight Club and then Fight Club was the number one movie, and then like Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera was the number one song. Right. And they review them, and then obviously within the context of the review, like they talk about the time, and they talk about the directors, and they talk about the record company, and they talk about Brad. They'll do a thing about Brad Pitt's career. They'll talk about Christina Aguilera and what she meant to the culture, and like the whole thing. So that's like an evergreen show because it's about like past of it. It's not. There's a little bit. I kind of like hate the nostalgia industry.
Yeah.
I don't consider that the nostalgia industry. No, it's just a mnemonic device way to like pick the art that you're going to critique.
Yeah.
And it's mostly like a critique show.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like a entertainment
and they grade and they grade stuff and like they're good. They're like, hey, Fight Club like is a good movie, not a great movie. Like Fincher's here's some better Fincher movies. Here, Christina Aguilera has like a lot of talent, but like this song sucks because it doesn't showcase it at all. And it's like a critical show. It's not just like blowing show.
There's lots of like other pieces too, and they'd be like, oh, this is the number one song, and what you found out a few years later is they got busted with an 8-ball of coke and a prostitute.
So they talked. There was there was an R. Kelly episode.
Eddie Murphy getting caught with a transvestite hooker.
They do stuff like that. And they'll review.
There's a lot of angles you can come at that instead of like a purely artistic critique.
Exactly. So it's a good show. Sense, yeah. So that is a show that I will go back and find like a library. Like I'm interested in finding like what's in the library.
Yep.
And then even like Rogan, I'll go.
Old Rogan is okay.
It is
because a lot of it's more specific.
It is more.
It's based on who's on the show.
It is, and it's closer to. It's not exactly evergreen because obviously current events for but it's because it's a gift and a curse because I definitely don't. I've never like listened sequentially to Rogan episodes.
No,
it's like if I like the guest, or I'm interested, or I hate the guest, or I'm interested in the guest, I'll listen.
Yeah,
but if it's not, I won't. Like I'll go a week. I haven't listened to a Rogan in a while. I tried. I wanted to listen to the Mahershala Ali one.
I like her.
And she's great, and I really and this is tough. It was just like boring.
It is.
I get it. She's a fucking beast. Like she really is. You talk about like actual cancel culture. Like no, they'll murder her and her family. That's that's the whole thing. But it's like it's a boring listen.
Yeah.
I can't listen to it.
I remember I watched her on Dave Rubin's show a few years ago. And that was the first time I saw her. And then I watched her on a few other things. It was when she was really lighting up the circuit and was more of a public target of the left, right? Which is kind of waned. Even the left gets bored of targeting you for a while. If they can't completely destroy you.
She didn't just go away.
No. If they can't completely destroy you and revel in your humiliation, they'll just kind of move on to the next target.
Yeah.
I think she figured that out.
Right.
She's like, listen, dude, they cut off my fucking clitoris. You can't intimidate me.
Exactly.
Like, go fuck yourself.
Yes. Correct.
But she's such a sweet, nice person.
She absolutely.
The last Rogan I watched was probably Elon Musk.
Okay.
The most recent one, and then the Michael Malice because I love Michael Malice. I stand him like you do Peterson.
I know. No, that's fine. That's fine. I think there's a place for that.
And I think I got really disenchanted with Rogan, and I think a lot of people do because they make him out to be more than he wants to be. Like whatever he has become like culturally and like entertainment and podcasting. he still wants to be like, dude, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just really busy, bro. I don't have any time for this. Like, I'm just really, and he just talks to who he wants to talk to.
Yes.
And like, if you don't like who he's talking to or what he's talking about, well, that kind of sucks because he's had fuck you money for a while now.
Absolutely.
Especially with the Spotify switch. So he's just an opportunist, and the opportunity is who do I want to talk to?
Absolutely.
It's not like who do I want to make money or what do I want to plug. It's like who do I want to talk to right now?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think people just have to accept that he's not like a political guy.
Yeah,
and he's not. He doesn't want to be like an influencer.
Exactly.
He's kind of a middling comedian.
I don't think he's that funny.
Who has used his?
But I like.
Yeah. I'm being generous here. Yeah. People on the internet will be much more harsh on his comedy career. And he's grown his platform, and he's now like one of the podcasting godfathers. He's gonna do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And I have accepted, and people just need to accept that like. He's a meathead who talks to who he wants to talk to.
Well, so I know I'm going to keep... this will be another theme that I bring up constantly. Is like, it's better for the culture that Joe Rogan isn't political.
Yeah, I agree.
We need more...
They tried to make him political.
Correct.
The left tried to put him in a box.
Exactly.
And make him one of the bricks in their yellow brick road of hatred that leads you to being a 1488 white nationalist.
Right.
And like the dude advocates for like legalizing drugs and like
said
he was going to vote for Bernie Sanders twice.
Correct.
And like honestly on a lot of big issues has no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
No, he's like bad on
and by his own admission.
Yeah.
And like if you're looking at him as like a political figure or like a grand philosopher, like you're looking in the wrong place.
No,
he has people on who you could listen to.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Who he brings on for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, but and again, like it's healthier that we don't have the labeled legacy cable news strategy of like this box head is going to pantomime the conservative position.
Yeah.
This box head is going to pantomime like the liberal position. Like now they talk for 15 seconds.
Yep.
Like that's stupid. And we should like get rid of that format. That format is it will be gone. And
I almost feel like being part of a group says, "Oh, I'm a fan of this person," makes you more I don't know, invested or opinionated than actually like being a fan.
Yeah.
Like if you're one of the people on Twitter who's like talking about how awesome or how shitty Joe Rogan is.
Yeah.
And then I feel like if you actually are a fan and watch his show, you will come away like way more lukewarm.
Absolutely.
On the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's not gonna like fire you up.
No.
If you've actually been watching his show for a while.
Yes.
Because you're like, all right, they're just talking. They're
not.
And the things they're talking about aren't particularly radical. And the people he's having on aren't particularly radical.
No.
Unless you consider Ben Shapiro radical, which some people do.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's a good platform for culture.
Yeah, and it's a good thing that he exists. Mm-hmm. So that's not exactly what I
don't know what we were talking about.
But. Well, it was interesting. You did so like. The don't eat the bugs thing is something that I did kind of want to talk about.
Yeah, don't eat the bugs.
So it filters in from our last episode, which I listened to last night, and again, probably because it's like it's a me episode.
I got a lot of good feedback.
Oh, you did?
From a lot of my more anarchist friends.
Oh, really?
The ones, they really liked it.
Oh, cool.
One of my friends who's the most down was like, dude, this is like my favorite one. So,
really?
Because he's really big into self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
He's really big into, I don't need the government.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the nanny. I don't need anything. He runs a company with his brother.
Yeah.
They do tree work, right?
Cool.
So they do hard physical work. They make good money. They go all over this place. They built it from scratch. They have no college degrees, no education. They've had all sorts of hardship. So they're very into that.
Yeah.
Like you're weak. You need to be better.
Yeah.
If you try to be better, your life will get better.
Yeah.
So, like, in a way, I was surprised, but then I thought about it, and I was like, no, this is pretty on.
I'm telling you, man. Well, so I wanted to here's where... So that was very much in my wheelhouse, again, because I'm very interested in... It's so fucking weird for me. But I'm very interested in, like, again, heterosexual... romance, relationships, and what it means for the culture. Like, I'm big into that. That's kind of like my wheelhouse. It's weird. It is weird. It's very strange. But
This guy likes pussy. He's so fucking gay.
Well, because yeah, right. Well, again, those are like pantomime incel bullshit things with like by weak underdeveloped men. But anyway, so this is where I want to. Don't eat the bugs. This you want to know how fucking.
They want you to eat the bugs.
Well, you want to know how fucking good I am like at this is that I'm gonna tie that to bugs.
Okay, cool.
Is because I'm so fucking good at this. Okay, and this is where our paths intersect. Because I am high on non-government. I'm high on non-institutional authoritarianism, and what I mean by that is, I do not. When the government tells you to eat the bugs, or your corporate overlord tells you to eat the bugs, you say no because it's them telling you. Having said that, it's probably not the worst idea to eat the bugs, because eating bugs means sufficiency.
Yeah.
On an individual micro, non-macro level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty on point.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I mean, we all watch Bear Grylls eat bugs when we were kids, and we're like, yeah, if I was starving in the woods, I could do that.
Sure.
Right? Or I couldn't do that, depending on your disposition.
Right. Well, the thing is, you could because you're stronger than you are.
Right.
But anyway,
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go a few days.
Or stronger than you think you are.
People will do crazy things.
Yeah, you're much stronger than you think.
You'll eat bark and shoe leather after a few days.
Yes.
But you're not going to do it on corporate authority, and that's because or government authority, because they're just so fundamentally corrupt. Not in some nebulous philosophical way, but in that specific
in the actual
field.
Yes.
In like the actual field of sustainable agriculture and livestock and environmentalism and holding global polluters accountable and holding global overfishers, overpopulators accountable. It's filled with graft.
Absolutely.
It's filled with neglect. And they have never had any intention of actually creating a sustainable ecological balance.
Global.
And I don't believe they're just going to do it now. Suddenly, at the same time in which they're all monopolizing the food industry and monopolizing farmland, and the largest global competitor to them is China, who is creating their own personal breadbasket in Africa because they can't feed their own population at home. Like, it's not a coincidence that when their control of the world's food supply, which is one of America's largest non-military means of control in the world.
It's what we do best, maybe?
Yeah, and as well as other European countries who are invested in this, like, it's not a coincidence that now they want to control the food supply, and now they want to dramatically scale back the level of consumer goods that are available to their population. Because it means more profits.
Absolutely.
And a lot of this, whether or not it's a good idea to eat the bugs anyway, whether it's necessary to maintain protein levels, that requires you to believe the climate models as they currently stand, which more and more evidence is coming out to contradict them. It's coming out that more of these studies can't be replicated. They're starting to blame. I saw a very recent study out of like Science Times or something. I don't know. I'm not a big science person.
Science.
I'm more into history.
Science is the.
I showed it to my girlfriend, and she's like, "Yeah, this isn't like a crackpot article." She's like, I'd have to read all the studies, but it's not like a fucking tabloid."
Well, I'll just say I'll interject, but I want you to keep going.
Yeah.
Al Gore, Michael Mann, global warming, and now Michael Mann is climate change. Doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it does not.
I'm
a denier from the speech Overton window around this topic. Having said that, I am a real, I think, conservationist environmentalist, and we can get into that. So there are two pieces to this pillar: the corporate globalist propaganda of climate change is a grift.
Yes, it's neo-feudalism. They want control of the whole
simultaneously also don't care enough about the environment.
Yes, I agree.
I think you can those are very compatible viewpoints.
Those are absolutely. There's a reason why
everyone's head just fucking melted.
Yeah, there's a reason why in a lot of these alternative internet communities, eco-fascism is like an actual political identity.
That's right.
You have to believe the climate change and global warming models to even believe that the current system is no longer sustainable. Right. So if you remove that, there's no real reason to eat the bugs. the climate change happens all the time. It's happened for the history of the planet, and a lot of the studies suggesting that we were the main dominant factor in that change are now debated.
Yes.
The same way that up until like a year or two ago, people were telling Graham Hancock he was fucking crazy, thinking that humans existed more than 100,000 years ago.
Right.
And now he's right. Right. So
I actually don't know that. I know I know who Graham Hancock is.
Yeah, well, he's an example of one of the. You can go back and watch old Rogan episodes.
I know because that's the only way I know him. That's the only way I know him.
Because he's not talking about current stuff. He's talking about stuff that happened tens of hundreds of thousands of years ago. Yeah. Right. And so he essentially had several theories. The main one being that the idea of humanity only being around for 40,000 years isn't really accurate. And
is it 20,000 years?
20 or 40, I don't know the number. But he found several dig sites and things to suggest, he's an archaeologist and a bunch of other things, to suggest that the level of human technology that we've seen from our earliest living ancestors existed up to 100,000 years ago. Right.
Okay.
So
he's kind of consensus. Well,
it's not consensus. He was a heretic for almost 10 years. He was a heretic. He was not allowed in all these different societies. He got blacklisted. Right. He was always trying to get things published and getting pushback from the scientific community.
This is kind of like the Weinstein Guild argument.
It's also similar to like. You have no evidence of election fraud. Well, how about you let me into the court and I can show you all my evidence? They say, no, we're not going to have a hearing because you don't have any evidence. They did the same thing to Graham Hancock.
It's the Guild protectionism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Brett and Eric Weinstein. Yeah. Talk about this phenomenon. They're the best that I know of about speaking. So that Guild phenomena happens everywhere, and we see plenty of people do it. They're the best at speaking to it in regards to science.
Okay. Yeah. No, they're very good at that.
Yeah.
They're very good.
And they talk about this, particularly what Eric Weinstein. Well, so what Eric Weinstein, and I get it. It's funnier because they, their name is different than Weinstein. Yeah. It's kind of funny to just say it, but anyway, Eric Weinstein says it particularly in population models around immigration and like the big sort of corporate lie around the one side kind of Koch brothers, no borders piece, and then the sort of critical race La Raza lobby that says no borders.
Yes.
Weinstein says like there's been a 40-year cabal of like open borders immigration hucksters who have used the economic community to push this to push policy from a Guild's perspective. And then Brett Weinstein and Heather Haining, who's his wife, are evolutionary biologists.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, and they speak about the science Guild in regards to gender and sex because they're evolutionary biologists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they say they very clearly articulate that these are Guild positions, not science positions. They use the dogmatic language of religion in the context of science and with the protectionism of the Guild community to push this orthodoxy.
Right. Well, they've already began relabeling
which is why they're huge targets.
Right. They've already began relabeling evolutionary biologists as biological essentialists, and now the new one that I saw on Clubhouse, because we're trying to get on Clubhouse more, is eugenicists. The more hard left people... Did you see that on Clubhouse? Yeah, I saw that on Clubhouse. Okay. The more hard left people are starting to refer to evolutionary biologists as eugenicists.
I mean, that's... There's a whole separate conversation about language.
Yeah, all this is to say the scientific community has turned into a religion. Right, and that you have to subscribe to the basic tenets if you want to operate within their society.
And this is why the climate change, global warming,
is one of the main pieces of heresy.
Absolutely,
yeah, in their Church of Science.
Absolutely, and it's a good example. Although maybe I should have done a little more forethinking prior to articulating it here. But on the other side, I kind of like that we flesh out. You have more well-developed ideas than I do. I tend to develop my ideas while we're talking. The corporate Guild compulsory narrative around environmentalism cannot and does not jive with my form. And do I have my own Guild? Like, yes, I guess so. But my own Guild would be around liberty and self-determination and individualism, because when I say that is the more free, competent, confident individuals we have in society, the better off the environment is.
Agreed. They'd be better off.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They would be better off directing these attempts at sustainable legislation to hold the corporate entities accountable.
Absolutely.
But they're not going to because they pay their salaries.
Like, I hate and believe we should dismantle the EPA.
Oh, EPA is terrible.
But I would like to think of a more local, I don't know, association strategy around like not dumping in rivers.
Is the
or around like not littering.
I mean, I guess I have a
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, something I haven't thought of. When you see the trucks like the Massachusetts Environmental Police, is that a division of the EPA or is that a state body?
I don't know the answer to that.
Because if it's a state body,
I have a friend who would know the answer to that.
Yeah, I my girlfriend would probably know. She's a big environmentalist.
Yeah.
If it's a separate,
I don't think it's part of the EPA.
If it's not part of the EPA, we don't need the EPA.
Yeah.
If the states are able to create their own legislative law enforcement, not legislative, their own law enforcement agencies to regulate environmental things based on a local level in the citizenry, I think that is preferable to a bloated federal agency that was started in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we developed...
Yeah, Nixon, the big, hardcore righty.
Oh yeah, big time. Getting off the gold standard of the EPA.
Big time righty.
Empowering the FBI and the CIA. Yeah, really fucking cool guy.
Yeah.
We were able to build the most conservation land of any sovereign nation before the EPA existed, and we were able to maintain it before it existed.
That's right.
I would argue that a lot of our national parks and monuments were probably better before it existed. I don't know. I wasn't alive. Some people would probably disagree with me. I generally don't think federal agencies fix anything.
I agree with you.
And what we've seen is even though the EPA exists, there's nothing to stop a president from coming in, like Trump, and lowering the restrictions on like waterway pollution. Right. Like there's nothing to stop a president like Biden coming in and lowering restrictions on fracking to where people's water lights on fire. I don't necessarily think we should ban all fracking, but like there are some side effects that should be like studied and addressed.
This is what I'm talking about.
Exactly. In the same way, like we should have fixed like Flint, Michigan's water.
I agree, absolutely.
Like years ago, like we talked about before. Like, so even with the EPA, they're not stopping the things they're supposed to stop because there's nothing.
It's like the SEC.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
They just exist as like a job creation agency.
It's a slush fund.
And a slush fund, a revenue generation for the federal government, and like. To I don't know, to make hippies feel warm and fuzzy inside, and to get activists off politicians' back. Is it just maybe it's just another deck in the cards of look at all the good stuff I'm doing for you.
Right.
They don't actually have to do anything. A bunch of people in an office 2 states away are handling it.
Right. Well, so and this is where I need to flesh this out, and I need to be. It's it's not nobody's asking me to come up with like the solution, but I'm also just more solutions oriented in the way I think. So for example, it's like, so if I'm very not sympathetic. I believe in the value of non-centrally planned cultural authoritarianism to regulate human behavior. I believe in that, and I would promote it. Like I believe in shame. I believe in standards. I believe in those things as a tool to make everyone's lives better. And it not being individually compulsory, and it being not enforced on the other end of a gun.
Yeah.
So having said that, I also look at like a street that is in a town that has littering fines, and I see the amount of trash on the side of the road, which isn't zero, but it seems to be less than the street that doesn't have a littering fine. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know either, but I'll do you one better.
Do you know what I'm saying?
If we didn't have public streets, there'd be less littering. Because if you came into a private street and you littered, you wouldn't be allowed back on the street.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. I think it only builds on what we were saying.
That's a good answer.
Is that the protections that the government has that we pay money for?
That's a good answer.
Don't really work.
Right.
Or if they do work, the benefit is negligible compared to not having the littering signs anyway. as compared to if there were no public streets and we had private streets in my ideal anarchist utopia, right? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be a utopia by definition. But
anarchist society.
Yeah,
your liberty society.
If you live in let's take a metropolitan area, because that's easier for a lot of people to visualize, right? It's easy for people who live rurally and are independent and self-sufficient to visualize and participate in an anarchist system because they're not interacting with involuntary authority.
And they already are.
Yes, they already essentially are.
Yeah.
Anyone who grows their own food and collects rainwater and runs their own business is essentially living an anarchist life. You have to pay your taxes or you go to prison. That would be probably the only other thing you could do is just not pay your taxes. Which some people find ways not to do. If you're smart, you shouldn't pay your taxes.
Or right? as low as
you possibly can. So we'll take a metropolitan area, right? You have an apartment building, you have a shopping mall, and you have school, right?
Yep.
Each one of these places previously has to rely on the government monopoly of violence, right? Through law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And in this particular example, through littering fines, right?
Yep.
If each of these buildings is invested in securing their own property, right? Which they would probably pay less to hire private security than they do in taxes every year. If we're talking about a shopping mall owned by a major billion-dollar corporation that's paying millions and millions of dollars in taxes every year, they'd probably pay less. Mm-hmm. And now if they were to actually go into business together with the other buildings in their vicinity through a voluntary contract agreement, which we already have every day, and you already have penalties if you don't follow the contract, you could have a security force which not only protects the building, not only checks people in, not only settles disputes between tenants, but also enforces the littering rules.
Right.
And if people are found littering, they just won't be allowed in the building anymore.
They can't come back.
Yeah, you'll get a series of warnings, and then that is decided by the independent organization.
Right.
And if you violate the rules too many times, you just won't be allowed back in the mall.
Yeah,
You won't be allowed back on this street. You'll have to go around the block.
Yeah.
Want to. So is it a little messy? Yes, but is it any messier than
what we have now?
Yeah. I don't really know, but I don't think so.
It's at least, it may not be on orders of magnitude better on an individual circumstantial level.
Yeah.
Although I would argue it probably would be, and it would at least be more just.
Yeah, I mean it would be more just. Justice would be quicker.
Yeah.
It would be more proportionate.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be arbitrarily decided. There are some other issues when you think about freedom of movement and travel and where you can go and where you can't go, and cartels of companies buying up land. I don't want Ancapistan.
Right. I mean? Yes.
There still needs to
be, neither do I. Yeah.
There still needs to be a degree of unity among the citizenry to decide that we're not going to let any one group get too strong and fuck everybody over.
Right.
And in this current experiment, the one group that has gotten too strong and we're not doing anything about it while they fuck us over is the government.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So that's right. Yeah.
It's not so much that there is a wonderful, perfect, sounds, academically enriching argument for anarchism, right? It's that people have this idea of anarchism as like Antifa with Molotov cocktails and bandanas and violence.
I did until I had more conversations with you.
Yeah. It's really the best argument for is the failings of government.
Well,
right? and there almost all of the negative situations you could rise. Well, what happens here in an anarchist situation? You can explore that in the context of our current legal framework, and you're still going to have a lot of those similar problems.
Well, there was a point that I did want to bring up, but I don't think you can have, and this is how arose. 1776 and 1788, none of these systems are perfect. But you also cannot have anarcho-capitalism, which I'm moving more toward. I am still a conservative. That's true. But you also cannot have the form, although the conservatives, Edmund Burke was an anarcho-capitalist, not a conservative. You know what I mean? Alexander Hamilton was even still, So, you can't have anarcho-capitalism without a moral public.
Yeah.
You need the moral authority.
I mean, when you have immoral people, you shoot them.
I'll put it to you this way. I would rather have anarcho-capitalism with a moral public.
Sure.
And to me, not from a utopia perspective, but from a practicality perspective. You need the instincts of morality, and to me, the because I am not skilled or have the distribution channel or particularly want to create my own form of moral bedrock. Yeah. My default setting generally would be Judeo-Christian religion. Yeah. I want to use that textbook. Well,
there's an argument
to the best of my ability.
Right. I mean, there's an
It's
argument.
Not perfect. There's plenty of shitty stuff in there.
There's an argument to be made that was one of the factors in why early American civilization is, like, I'm talking about late 18th century, post-revolution into the 1800s, before Civil War, is kind of this anarchy.
It is, yeah.
But still with some sort of American identity.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it without that sort of moral bedrock, it's questionable whether or not them all just having to have been descended from Scots and hating the English would have been enough.
Yeah,
right? Would Mel Gibson have fought in The Patriot if they didn't kill his sons? You know what I mean? If he just lived in a different place,
sure,
and like the Redcoats didn't show up and like shoot his kid,
right?
Like, would he have still joined if there wasn't this Judeo-Christian, patriotic American identity?
Right.
Right.
Like, and you know, again, we'll have more conversations about religion. We had kind of a religious episode a little while, not episode, segment, I guess you could say. Joining up in a cause for liberty as an institution, not a physical institution, but an ethereal institution among groups of people. Taps into the same instincts that religion does. And religion gives you the training to recognize it and act on it, in my estimation. You know, the same way you act on liberty is the same way you act on behaving in a Judeo-Christian moral construct. So, and predominantly what that means, and I need to get better at articulating this, is flexing the muscle you have for sacrifice, right? Like, my immediate future and my immediate actions are going to suck so that my future rewards will suck less. And religion in particular teaches you to do that often. You know, be chaste, get married, don't fall into hedonism. And liberty requires that. You know, liberty requires you to say no when someone says put on a mask. That's hard and uncomfortable. Liberty requires you to maybe shoot someone. Yeah. And people should not confuse, like, self-defense with, like, a fucking Mel Gibson movie. Yeah. Like,
liberty and
having to save your life by killing another person fucking sucks.
Yeah, don't do it in this state.
That's awful. Don't
to jail.
And if you can avoid it, don't do it anywhere.
Yeah.
It is a sacrifice in some ways, because in order to defend yourself, you have to confront evil and malevolence, and that's fucking difficult, man. I don't know about, and I'm not a pacifist, and I'm not, but all my instincts are like, and all human instincts are like avoiding physical danger until absolutely necessary. So again, the muscle that you need to kind of teach you culturally and inherently and ethereally, religion does not the best job, but a good enough job at scale to create a beta environment for practicing sacrifice. And liberty needs that tool flexed across a population in order to happen.
Well, I think
does that sound?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. I think
you don't have to agree with.
No, I don't. It's not that I agree or disagree. I think that liberty is sacrifice.
Liberty is sacrifice,
regardless of if it's religious or not. Liberty is sacrifice.
And real quick, and I'll let you go. Religion is sacrifice.
Yes, liberty is sacrifice. You're sacrificing the greater good for your liberty. Yep. And that is always a fight worth fighting.
So you made a point. You didn't make the point, but you mentioned a phenomena which feeds into my simultaneous opinion that we, as a culture of individuals, should be or will be more environmentally friendly if we act as competent individuals versus the grift and corporate cabal that is climate change. One of these tenets is that, and you can probably throw some guild study at me that will prove this statement wrong, but fuck that, it's some guild study. You know, that big cities are better environmentally than like rural societies.
That is one of the sticking points for these globalists.
And to me, like, fucking no, it isn't.
It's not.
Like, there's just no way. There's no evidence, quote unquote. There's no guild fiat command that is going to convince me or any other adult that hyper packing large amounts of people into small parcels of land and ripping and raping the fuck out of that land is better for the environment than self-sufficient growers and harvesters and hunters and property owners. There's just no fucking way. And you know, like that. So, this is where we made the joke last time, and I do think it's funny. Like, I'm way more, you know, the most radical thing we started with the most radical thing I do is I marry a woman and have children with her and then raise them to be religious.
Right.
The next most radical thing, which on the surface to stupid people seems like a left-wing talking point, which is I grow my own food, collect my own rainwater, hunt my own land, and own my own land with property. That is radical as fuck.
Yeah.
Because the post-ownership grift cabal of climate change wants to shove you into a fucking 2x12 apartment.
They want to shove you into a commie mega block apartment.
Yes.
They want to put you in a commie mega block apartment that you pay $2,400 a month for.
Yep.
Which doesn't matter because you get UBI.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not, and it's also not yours.
Yeah, it's also
not yours. And that's the big piece. This is all. I mentioned this way at the beginning. This is all about post-ownership.
Yes.
So again, to stupid people who would say, "Oh, me," who would say to me, and I will continue to be anonymous for a little bit. Hey, me, you sound pretty, left wing because you believe in growing your own food. It's like, if you want to label it that way, like I guess, but you left out the biggest fucking piece of it, which is it's my food.
Yeah.
And I grew it, and I defended and I own the land on it. That cannot stand in this post-ownership cabal, which they use. They're going to try to tell you that relying on which is why it's all bullshit, is they're going to try to tell you that you need to fucking shop at Whole Foods and live in an apartment and don't have a car.
Yep.
And that's more environmentalist, where you rely on fucking big trucks and agriculture, big mega Monsanto agriculture. Whereas me, but because I own a truck and a Polaris, and because I do fucking till rotation, and because I till although we don't, but that's a practical thing. But because I till the land, I'm a fucking eco-terrorist. Like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Under the
or if I hunt,
under the emergency provisions they put in under Obama, it's illegal to collect over a certain amount of rainwater. It's illegal to store over a certain amount of food. It's illegal to do just because they don't necessarily get enforced doesn't mean they aren't on the books as federal statutes.
And that's why and that's why I feel confident and comfortable saying global warming, climate change is bullshit, and they don't give a fuck about the environment.
It's a short sale. It's a cash grab. It's a
short sale.
It's a short sale.
That's a good way to put it. That's actually the best way.
So they made out like bandits when the housing market crashed, right? Yeah. They bought up all the extra properties. They turned them into rentals. The single family home ownership is at the lowest point it's ever been.
Yeah.
The three lowest things for young people right now are owning a home, starting a family, starting a business. Right. It's not just that the capital isn't there, because me and several of my peers have the capital to buy a home. We have the amount for a down payment. We have the work history. We have the savings to make sure we don't blow our nut on the first few months. And we're unable to find things in our home states, right?
Yeah.
Near our jobs and our families for reasonable prices, right? it's not a matter of millennials having no money. It's we have no wealth. When you look at our balance sheets, like there's nothing there.
Assets.
Right? But the articles are all there that now they want to convince you that single-family home ownership is bad.
This is what I mean.
Like
they use this environment justification.
They come at it from the cultural angle of that it's bad morally, that the nuclear family is bad, as we saw that get wrapped into all of the identity politics over the last year. They wrap it into the environmental angle, that it's bad for the environment. They wrap it into the financial
white
angle.
supremacy and fucking unfair housing and all this other bullshit. It's why it has nothing to do with any of this.
And it's weird because they also simultaneously demonized landlords, right?
That's right.
That landlords should get a real job
because they own things.
Because they own things, right? But who's going to own the commie mega block apartments in the smart cities?
The government.
Jeff Bezos.
It's because that's
Jack Ma. He disappeared. No one knows who the fuck he is.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Faceless industrialists and billionaires will own these buildings.
Well, I would think this would be something that, like Malice would talk about, is they don't hate ownership and they don't hate wealth. They hate when you have it.
They want to have it. And what people is it
having... Am I right about that?
You're right. Having a ruling elite wouldn't be as bad if they were somewhat competent.
Absolutely.
But they've shown that they're not competent.
Or if they didn't hate you so much.
Yes, or if they didn't want to subjugate you and kill you or settle for your humiliation.
Yes.
Right? I disagree with that. I see it like when people say, it wouldn't be so bad if they were competent. I still disagree. Even if they were competent, I'd want their heads on fucking spikes.
Well, it's because they hate... It's not... this is interesting. Peterson has this kind of philosophy, working... theory that he's still parsing out around like this war on competence, which is definitely real. But I'm interested in my own thinking about what it means.
So now, one of the things they're trying to eliminate standards of entry into certain institutions, one of them being universities, right? So we're seeing a push for them to remove standardized testing. A lot of universities are no longer going to require SAT and ACT scores.
Right.
The same thing happened in Mao's China. They reduced the entrance qualifications for various different government positions, various different education positions in order to get people in. Whether it is to bring in dregs to weaken the institutions or whether it is to get in your agents who might not otherwise qualify, the jury's out.
Well,
right?
You have more people who are intrinsically linked to the success of the state.
Yeah, exactly.
They now have something to lose when the state goes
they're
over.
more invested in the state's hegemony. But just to double back to the commie mega blocks, it's not just like a savvy investment by people seeing like the real estate market going up and like investing in these places. Like
there's some of that, but that's not
these things are like decided at Davos and Bilderberg and like all these other places. And when you look at how at the beginning of COVID you had Bill Gates going on TV and talking about medical passports and extended lockdowns and quarantines. You have Fauci still saying that we're going to be locked down for at least another year, if not longer. Then they also are invested in the creation of the vaccines. They're also Bill Gates is now one of the larger owner, not largest. I don't know if people got that. He doesn't really own that much, but he's well invested in agriculture and food. And now the media infrastructure, the corporate press that works downstream of the government and these private billionaire elite interests are advocating for medical passports. So like they're advocating for medical passports and they're demonizing any state that bucks the narrative, right? They're demonizing South Dakota, they're demonizing Florida. They're demonizing any governors or any senators that go against they're trying to expel Hawley because he voted to not certify the election. They're trying to purge any dissent. They're trying to create like no-go zones. Like if you are a good Democrat, if you are a good liberal, if you are a good American, you won't go to Florida, you won't go to South Dakota because you're literally killing grandma because you're the reason why.
Did you read that article, that Zero Hedge article?
I did. Yeah. You're the reason.
That sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, it is. It's everything I think is.
I love Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge is a finance. Do you know Zero Hedge at all?
I am unfamiliar.
Zero Hedge.
I've read his stuff, but I'm unfamiliar with the origins or nature of it.
Zero Hedge is a Wall Street investing site, but they get into this stuff.
Right.
Sorry.
It's okay. And if they are able to, going back to that the corporate press is now advocating for medical passports, they're now advocating for saying it's okay for businesses to require you to get vaccinated. They're holding the reopening of the economy hostage unless you comply with their criteria, which right now includes vaccination and medical passports.
So
right?
So that's true.
Yeah.
What's interesting, and I think this was, and the reason I brought up the zero hedge thing, is the white pill perspective is even in.
There's another half to this I want to get
I'm sorry. Real quick. Even in blue and blue pilled states, there are enough red and red pilled people where we are and the company, which I won't name, that I work for, who just don't do that shit.
Yeah, I know.
And we're in we're in communist China right now.
Yeah.
But we have enough and this is I hate some of this because this is like John Kerry saying I don't know anyone who voted for George Bush. But I don't know anyone in my circle professionally, which is pretty fucking large, who listens to any of those mandates.
Yes. And here's the thing is that what I think we've seen.
So I'm like, that's pretty good.
That's true. But I think what we've seen since a long time, but especially over the last year, is it doesn't really matter what most people want.
You're right.
Is that the government is going to do what the government wants to do, and they're going to lobby and astroturf and create the specter of fear and support that's necessary to pass their agenda, right? Right now, that includes having all of their mockingbird puppets in the media talking about COVID passports, talking about vaccinations being mandatory. There are several, Canada, I believe, is one, Australia is another, New Zealand, the UK. The government is allowed to come in your house and remove you if they find out you have COVID, right? I know that a lot of these things are changing based on the infection levels and everything like that. They are saying that the home is the largest transmission rate for the virus.
Right.
The government is constantly trying to separate you from your children, right? And what I think they won't do it as a hard tyranny. They'll do it as they always do, which is an economic...
It's boiling frog.
Yeah, it's a boiling frog, but disguised as you're not boiling, they're giving you stimulus money. So the companies that abide by the government mandates in blue states will be given stimulus money, right? As states like Texas, as states like Florida, as states like South Dakota, and more Midwestern and southern states.
But the trick is when you open up, you don't need stimulus money.
Yeah.
I know.
It's like in the article you sent me. Is they'll use financial incentives to get major corporations.
No amount of stimulus can outcompete capitalism.
I agree.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to create different economic zones, and then you have to force your populations to choose. You have to force your populations to say, do I pick up my family and move them halfway across the country, or do I shut up and get my vaccination and get my medical passport? And then in a few years, when they tell you, in the 6 counties around these major cities, we found that 3 of them aren't complying with COVID regulations, right? So if you live in these 3 counties, you won't be allowed to travel to the other 3 counties. You won't be able to travel into the city.
Right.
You won't be able to do any of this because even if you got vaccinated, even if you did this, all the people in this place aren't doing it, and you're at risk because, as they've said, the vaccine doesn't stop you from being able to get and spread COVID. Right? So they essentially herd you into, it's like Hunger Games. They herd you into the zones that they want you to live in. They put you into the smart cities that are made by giant corporations that are subsidized by the U.S. government, right? And they give you biomedical passports. They have access to all your information. They increase the surveillance state, and they do this all under the guise of smart technology.
Absolutely.
Right? Just scan your eyeball or your handprint to get access. The same thing the Chinese did in Shanghai and all these super advanced cities, right? They add all this new smart tech to get all the information about you that they'll ever get, and then they restrict your movement. So and they say you can't go from the green zones to the red zones, because if you go to the red zones, you might get COVID.
So the white pilled piece of this, which was in that article too, is we're already seeing
is that people won't jive,
and they're not jiving, and they fucked up.
Yeah, they blew their load.
They blew exactly they fucked this up big time.
Yep.
And you see,
they expected more deaths.
Absolutely,
they expected more deaths.
And they expected more compliance.
Yep.
And the actual
they got a lot more than I even thought they would.
That's definitely true. But they got a lot of I think so. To me, because I'm a sports fan, right? I am, although I'm not nearly as much as I used to be, and I'm a sports fan mostly for well, it doesn't matter. I didn't get into that. Anyway, they got a lot of compliance from the institutions.
Yes.
And I use sports like as an example, and I understand and appreciate, and I get it because I'm being like one of these fucking, you know, it didn't affect me that much, which is bullshit because it affected plenty of people a shit ton.
With my fucking stimmy, Joe.
Anyway, that's another thing. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is, like, did we cede way too much, you know, power and sovereignty? Obviously. But am I also in some way, like, Florida never shut down, never had a mask mandate, is kind of the gold standard, and it's thriving and it's very clear.
You better leave DeSantis there. Don't pull him up for a fucking presidential run.
I agree.
I mean,
Florida, we need bastions of.
We need that shit, dude.
I agree with you. And I use this because it's almost the best. Like, we're pretty close to the best example. Is like, I was just there. Here's another thing. I just drove through 12 states over 15 days.
Hell yeah, dude.
And nothing fucking happened.
Nope.
And no one, and everyone who basically asked me to comply in scenarios where I didn't want to, I didn't. Were there times that I like put a mask on in a particular, like, walking into a business? Like, yes. Do I like that? No. Was it hard compliance? Sometimes it's more nefarious, but just to make my argument sound better, like, I'm okay with it. So we're in like so there's two pieces to this. First is like North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia are now just New York.
Yeah.
Those people have left. They're leaving. They're gone.
New York is done.
It's over.
It's going to take a while for them to recover.
California is now, Texas is just now California.
Did they get enough to recall Newsom?
See you later. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
California is now Texas.
And
they're going to fuck up those states.
And it's like,
so that's them up.
So that's part of it. But I say it from, again, I'm making a white, there's plenty of black pill arguments. Yeah. I'm making a white pill argument. And the final piece is like, we are in the fucking communist China, as much as like New York and California, where it's fine, we've said, you know, we're in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is like worse in some ways. And still, it's like, people are just living in a lot of ways. It's worse, it's bad, we've ceded way too much. But also, I'm proud of some of my co-citizens who are, you know, like you and, you know, whatever, like we've been to parties, we've had birthdays, we did so you know what's funny,
I've had several parties at my house. Suck my dick, Charlie Baker.
Me too.
Suck my dick, Tony Fauci. I'll throw as many parties as I want.
And like, I've had like I have law, and I know we disagree on this. I get it. I live next door to a cop, across the street from a corrections officer. I know that's different. And Rockland's like kind of like a working class law enforcement
very much
town.
So. Very much so.
And it's like they all think the same way I do. You know, like I'm walking. You know, so there's enough. Are we like pussies? And did we not show up with 7 million guns to the Capitol to protest the election? No. Would I have preferred some version of that to be more effective? Yes. But we also didn't totally give in. And that instinct
if we did, we'd be like Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're not Canada. We're not the UK. We're not Australia.
You know why we're not?
Because we have guns.
And here's another, because we have guns. Okay. But Canada had a lot of guns too, and they let that fucking cuck Trudeau take them all. We did, and you're gonna love this. The reason why is because we didn't have fucking human rights councils and speech laws passed, the ones that Peterson tried to fight and for so long.
Yes.
Because we don't fucking have those.
Yep.
So when this globo homo fucking medical martial law shit started happening, the fucking alarm bells went off.
They did.
And and it was the Streisand effect. They tried to censor everything and shut everything down, and it made everyone want to look at it even more. Yeah. So, like, if we have that shit, that's when this can all go to Canada territory. Because Australia has that, New Zealand has that, the UK has that, a lot of these, like, really strict Southeast Asian countries have that, and we don't. And we're still here. So...
Yeah, so good. That's that stuff. And again, this is where, so I'll move away. Well, and in some ways, what I don't, so like COVID, whatever. So like seeds, you can't buy seeds.
Mm-hmm. No, you can't. It's like impossible.
The homesteading.
Yep. Me and my roommates figured that out when COVID started. We decided to build like a huge garden.
Yeah,
It was a whole fucking thing, dude.
We only have seeds because we have seeds.
Yeah. Because we got some. We ended up getting a bulk order, but it was hard.
And so there's and stuff like like in Texas, you have blackouts and all this shit and everything. It's like people. It's not the Streisand effect, but like the thing that the cabal didn't want to happen is happening, not at the scale that I want it to happen,
or the speed, but
it's happening.
It is happening.
Like gun sales are through the fucking roof, dude. Mm-hmm. You can't buy ammo,
dude.
It's like people are. It's like you are doing that garden, and you're like, fuck, what Amazon?
It's been over a month since the state sent my license to my local PD.
Yeah,
and I check twice a week. And they still haven't received and processed it.
Yeah.
Well, am I just supposed to sit with my thumb up my ass until you can open your fucking mail, dude?
Yeah, that's Weymouth?
It's Weymouth.
Yeah. Weymouth is weird. Is Weymouth like a...
Weymouth's a red town.
Okay,
They are terrible. Even before Officer Chesna got shot, they were a very anti-gun town. Every firearm friend I've talked to, every instructor that I've worked with, everyone says, ooh, that's tough. Weymouth and Braintree in this area are tough.
Yeah.
I assume it's just because they're two of the towns closest to the city,
and just
some overflow,
and any urban town.
And there's so many just brainless fucking Democrats who still think it's the party of FDR and John Kennedy in this state. Fucking old. Well, maybe not anymore because all the old people went Trump.
It's.
I mean, Trump got a lot of this state. He got a big chunk of it.
There's another thing, and this is about. So this is about full circle. The story is not red states, blue states. The story is cities versus suburbs.
It's rural urban. It's a rural urban.
Again, the whole thing, and it is misleading, and I get it, but whatever. It's enough. It's practical enough to be useful. Mm-hmm. Is like you look at the county maps. Mm-hmm. It's like fucking not. It's something crazy. It's like Biden won like 18 counties. Mm-hmm. In the fucking country.
Yeah.
Like if you look at if you're from
he won the least amount of counties any president ever has to win an election.
If you're from a far enough like zoom perspective, even Massachusetts, you would be like, oh, that's a conservative state.
Yep.
Because anything west, it's all like Suffolk County and Worcester County and like a tiny bit of Springfield.
Yep.
And then like Northampton and the rest of it's red. Yep. Like Plymouth County, Norfolk County, Bristol County.
And this state has been getting more like that. I mean, we've always been kind of purple with Republican governors. But people say that in our governors were Mitt Romney and Charlie Baker.
I know. It's
so
not,
like they're not really red governors.
No.
Like Mitt Romney is the rhino.
Yeah.
Like when you think of a rhino,
exactly.
you think of Mitt Romney.
That's
He's
right.
the fucking rhino.
He is the rhino.
But it's gotten more conservative, and I think it's young people. I don't really think
I said this in our like first episode.
I don't think it's
Gen Z.
Yeah,
man, you made the good point. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
The problem. So the good thing is Gen Z men are way more conservative. The problem is Gen Z women are far more liberal.
Yeah.
But Gen Z is in aggregate more conservative.
Well, that's Jamie. That's it's a real problem because as we know, women are very overrepresented in comedy, entertainment, education, philosophy, government, and all these other things.
They are overrepresented.
Yeah. I'm sure that's all because of merit.
Yeah.
All because of merit.
They're overrepresented. But so anyway, but the point that you make up is correct.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that I always come back down to, and then this is more full circle because it's like, well, why do they want you in a fucking city? And it's because of post ownership and all that stuff. Also because when you live in a city, you become more reliant on centralized infrastructure, and you vote for
people.
You vote for statists.
People who live in New York City and are used to having a police department every few blocks and seeing cops on every street are so dumb.
Yeah.
That they think that someone who lives in rural Florida, 40 minutes away from the nearest sheriff's department, doesn't need an AR-15.
Yeah.
Like, and city living does that to midwits.
Absolutely.
It does that to fucking mush-mouth idiots, right?
Right. Well, even New York City, or New York State rather.
Yeah.
New York State is if you looked at it electorally from a certain distance, you'd be like, that's a fucking red state.
Yeah, and I think
everything north of fucking the Bronx is red.
And I think it's Gen Z people being conservative in their as they age, but it's also millennials getting burned. It's also a lot of like people like me. Like I'm almost 30, and I was like a liberal when I was young, and even through like my early 20s, and I got fucking burned, dude.
Yeah.
Like I got a fucking useless, expensive education that gave me a bunch of debt.
Yep.
I was given no like practical skills like through my high school education.
Yep.
Right. Like we had wood shop for like 1 year. Or whatever. And I'm not trying to tell myself a pity party.
But it's
everyone goes through hardship,
and it's systemic.
But you get burned. You're
talking about systemic issues.
You get at a job. You get at a college. You can't find the job that you really wanted to get, so you get another job. I worked a dead end job for like 7 years, where I made decent money, but I wasn't fucking going anywhere. You know. And then you can't buy a house, you can't start a family.
Right.
You don't have like community institutions like churches or elk lodges or Knights of Columbus or whatever.
Right.
Like non-governmental bowling leagues.
That whole I think I brought that up before.
Yeah, all your friends have moved to different cities. Hypergamy and polygamy dominate the dating scene.
Yep.
You're told that you're the problem, that you're not understanding enough, you're not tolerant enough, you're not in enough, you're not educated enough.
Yeah.
And then you see your government like advocating for your destruction, like your financial destruction, your safety destruction. If you live like I do in a part of Massachusetts that like is a higher crime area, and I'm not allowed to defend myself, like they are just punishing you for no reason, and you're being told it's your fault. People are like, well, fuck this. Like I'm not going to vote for people who like. Don't give me the minimum wage and the health care that the left tells me that I deserve, right? But also, like, doesn't let me own firearms and doesn't let me say what I want to do on Twitter, and, like, doesn't, like, help me find a job when they shut down Amazon Place. Not that I think anyone should work at Amazon, right? And that we need to remove that, but we have to shut down the economy because of COVID, but bring in a bunch of illegal immigrants that have no COVID screening whatsoever.
Exactly.
And we need to raise wages, but at the same time of raising wages, we need to bring in a bunch of unskilled labor that will drive wages down. And like these are things where like even if you're not like academic and political and like informed, like they don't make sense. And like they don't make any sense. And you're told that like you just don't get it.
And the downward pressure that comes from the left and the resulting conservative nature of Gen Z, particularly in Gen Z men, is a result of the phenomena that people learn about other people by what they do, not about what they say. And because they're less conscientious and because they are more interested in short-term pleasure than long-term sacrifice, the left says one thing and does another, and the right tends to say what they do. And because people learn by... There's a tipping point to this, but people tend to learn through osmosis, and that osmosis comes from witnessing actions. And to your point is... You can start out, it's very easy to start out as a liberal because you've been told by liberals certain things and certain promises, even though they do the opposite.
Yeah.
And again, like this is my point, like they don't care about ownership or property or rights. They just don't care to have you have that.
Yeah.
So what younger people, after having witnessed the lie about, and at least, again, there's not even consistency. It's like the true progressive stuff doesn't happen either because it's like, fine, okay, let's go with your ideal scenario. I don't want to and we shouldn't do this, but let's like play this out. In your scenario, we do have like UBI and a jobs program, like, and everybody's happy. But like that shit never happens because they actually don't care about it. They just talk about it. Whereas conservatives generally, even though they're not good at it in the institution, and I hate the GOP as much as you do, but generally conservatives culturally tell you what you don't want to hear and then do it, but your life turns out better. It's like, hey, don't have a ton of promiscuous sex. And you're like, fuck, that I want to. But then you're like, oh, now by the time I'm 30 and I haven't had like a million STDs and like I actually respect people and see them as human beings and not objects and not transactional. And like now I want to get married and find a partner who thought the same way as I did, and she sacrificed too, and she doesn't have a million STDs and a kid and only views men as abusers. Now we got married and I'm happy. Like that whole preaching shit that I hated when I was 19, I really appreciate now that I'm 35. Whereas what liberals do on two sides. The first is the ones who actually do act as they say and are heathens and fucking immoral have shitty, terrible lives and are addicts and suck. Or they're just charlatans and say, hey, you can be hippie-free love, you can experiment with all the drugs you want, you can be gay and you can do whatever you want and it's fine. And the only thing that matters is pleasure.
Pay your taxes, motherfucker.
But they themselves get married, have kids, and are stable.
Yeah.
So they're hypocrites and charlatans. And then you look at them and you're like, well, what the fuck? I just went out and partied for the last 10 years. You told me it was okay, but you lived like a conservative and your life is better? What the fuck? That shit happens all the time. There's a I forget what it's called. There's some phenomena like O'Sullivan's, whatever, where it's like you look at these liberals and particularly like these boomer liberals to your point, and it's like, oh yeah, they were the hippie movement, but it's like, no, they weren't. They got married, they had kids, they did all the things that conservatives talk about, and they reaped all the rewards, but they politically told you were stupid to do it.
Yeah.
So you then become resentful because you're like, you're not fucking radical at all. And one person doubles down on it and wants to say, I'm going to pull down every piece of hierarchy and competence and marriage and family. The other people get red-pilled, so to speak, and say, fuck, you're right. My hedonistic pleasure was awfully stupid, and I should have just figured shit out and got a job, and my life would be better. And then their lives get better. So you have these like diverging, you have either resentment and fucking communism, or you have people maturing and becoming adults. But the problem is we have a media culture and a corporate culture that says, keep being a fucking child.
They're trying to,
you know,
it goes beyond it. They're trying to redefine what is a normal, stable relationship. They're trying to redefine that. It's why they're effeminizing men.
But it's why
like, it's why they're stunting kids, because like the example of,
and we're shocked that depression and suicide is worse than ever.
The example of a young person being disciplined and rejecting vice and rejecting dopamine addiction and like succeeding of their own virtue that's a very powerful symbol.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a very powerful symbol, as opposed to you have a high school classroom and 2/3 of the guys are Lego soy boys.
Yes.
Right? And the other third are intimidated to be strong,
Stoics.
Actualized stoic people because of the
media culture,
the media
and
culture, the
culture.
society pressure, the institutional pressure. It all serves a purpose to like create a more malleable population that can be sort of shaped into whatever perverted decadent sculpture like the controllers want it to be.
It's pretty easy to get a soy boy to wear a mask.
Did you see?
And get vaccinated and all that other shit.
Did you see?
Not that easy to get a stoic to do.
I think I tried to send it to you. Didn't go through. Have you seen the box art for the unlicensed HRT that they're allowed to give kids in a lot of states?
I don't know what that is.
Dude, it looks like a fucking HRT is estrogen. It looks like a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh box.
It's not funny.
It's fucking. It's insane.
So where who's distributing this?
So from what I understand, right, is that due to legislation in various states for transgender rights.
Jesus Christ! And obviously
it's now much easier to get hormones.
Anime. Anime is for fucking weirdos and losers.
It's fucking. It's
and this is
much easier to get HRT and testosterone.
Yeah. And this is not prescription.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's not prescription.
Not that matters.
But for everyone listening, it's a shiny box.
Yeah.
Where if you ever bought like
they're turning it into
trading
a toy.
cards. Yeah. Yep. And it's clearly it's holographic film with little emblems and an anime character on it. It looks like
it looks like a box of Pokemon cards.
Like a box of Pokemon cards. Yeah. So it all serves a purpose to like make people less
actualized and less effective, and you're more reliant on big daddy government. You're less likely to stand up for yourself. It all serves a purpose.
Yeah, and that, and it's funny too, because that, we've, again, what you would realize is if you, and I want to try to keep coming back to this theme because I like to have some themes of episodes, even though I know we go wherever. Mm-hmm. What you'll find if you grow your own food and hunt is that your testosterone levels are going to go
big time.
Through the roof.
Big time, dude.
And you're not going to need any fucking D-ball or any whatever or any nothing. If you're outside and you get appropriate vitamin D, if you have calluses on your hands, if you don't watch porn for like 4 days after being
porn
outside,
is so fucked up.
It is. I almost want to have. I can't. I want to wrap.
Episode on it.
I want to wrap.
Well, that's a whole can.
I'd maybe tease it now and do it.
Yeah,
let's
do it. Yeah.
It
the
is.
T levels will go up.
It is.
Get off it.
And this is again like I don't want the government or Amazon or whoever to like mandate and remove porn as an institution. I do want like trafficking shit to be taken care of and all that stuff, and that's a massive part of the porn industry. Having said that, like, oh boy, porn is like so. Again, it's like everything. It's so emblematic of the pussification of America is like a stupid boomer term, but like, I can probably make a halfway decent argument that without porn, there's no such thing as pussification of America.
Yeah, I mean, dude, with the internet changed the game, man.
Yeah, like, this is what I mean. Yeah,
the only like barrier was you had to be of age to buy it, right? Like was like because I actually don't. I like Larry Flint. I like that he.
So do I.
I like that every month he sent a copy of Hustler to every member of Congress.
So
when they were all super anti-porn, I like that from a terms of like fighting government authority.
Me too.
But when you add the internet and any kid with an internet connection can just go on there. I'm all about like parental responsibility and like having the right controls and like it's easy enough to set up your Google accounts and stuff to block things, but there's always a way around.
They'll figure it out. They're
and
smarter
more
than
importantly,
you.
the advertisers don't care what software you have installed.
Absolutely.
They have designed ways to get people onto their websites regardless of whatever kind of content blocker you're working with.
You can't, and I'm a pretty fucking good dad.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the best parent and I'm not perfect and whatever. Like, and we've said this and we're living it and we're dealing with the societal pressure on it already. I have a 5-year-old. There is no shot he is having a phone with internet access until he's at least a junior in high school.
Hell yeah.
And I'm even nervous about that age.
Yep.
The idea, like having and he already has friends who
have a flip phone. You have a prepaid minute flip phone so you can call us if something goes wrong. And you'll be happier.
Absolutely. And it's even way happier. And he's fine and we're dealing with it and it's okay.
Yeah.
And the reason, so are there things on the internet outside of porn that I don't want him like looking at and whatever? Like yes, but not as much. But
mostly the porn.
But the reason is porn.
Yeah,
that's the reason.
Mostly the porn.
And that's and what porn does and like the porn. And again, it's deep and thematic. Like porn on every level bleeds into the degeneracy of culture. And like, I have used porn and was a porn person for a long time, obviously. Like, this is just how it goes. And there are times when I still use it. But there's like deep feelings of shame and regret and like that, like that. Because I know it just hurts you.
Yeah.
It just makes you less. Yeah. And every part of the experience makes you weaker. And it's just like, oh boy.
And it would be one
how
thing.
How shitty is that?
It would be one thing, and this is going to sound so lame, and it's like. It's
not to me, I bet.
No, not to you. But it would be one thing if the pornography was responsibly made.
Yeah, I think that's true.
If it was.
I don't think that's lame at all.
If it was more romantic. Right, and this is something that a lot of women talk about.
Absolutely,
women who watch porn have to specifically seek out, responsible romantic porn because it doesn't really exist.
No, because it's almost exclusively about violence.
It's all violent.
It's
hardcore,
fucking crazy, dude.
And it changes young people's ideas and expectations of sexuality.
Totally,
it blurs the lines between consent for young people.
Absolutely,
it can cause actual physical and mental harm. Like from early exposure and traumas, like it's not responsibly produced, and it's not like 30 years ago when you'd watch a movie, like a French film that got rated X because they couldn't show it on rated R, and there's like a few tasteful sex scenes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's not that.
It's not that.
No, it's not.
It's really, it's some hardcore shit.
You got fucking chicks like upside down and like...
For dudes, it'll fuck with your testosterone levels. It'll fuck with your dick, dude.
Massively.
It'll fuck with you staying hard. Mm-hmm. Like, it'll really fuck with your ability to please a woman if you watch too much porn, dude.
It makes you weak.
Yeah. It's really not good for you.
And it's so like interesting, like this, like kink culture fetishization of the hedonism of the 60s in the digital age. Again, like this is just a pacifying measure, you know? And it's like, live in a city, be surrounded by people, but have no relationships.
Sever your connection to nature.
Yeah, like... Exactly. Be surrounded by 8 million.
God.
It's like this shit is all you cannot
trust the state.
You cannot control and put a mask or vaccinate or have no-go zones on a person, on a man or a woman, on a man or a woman who can grow their own food, can teach their own kids, can pray out loud, who know how to use tools and who don't objectify the opposite sex. It's impossible to get that person to do what you want them to do. It's impossible. But it's also really possible on the flip side to get that person like to help you and work with you. And to make a society around you better.
That's one of them. Sorry,
like,
keep going.
No. So all of these things like fit, and like if you are forced in a fucking little tiny apartment and you're forced to be self-sufficient, how can you experience sex in the world? Well, you can only do it digitally. And it's like porn is a huge part of the fucking equation.
If you were going to resist, how can you do it any other way than violently? As we've seen with Antifa and BLM. How can you... You're not building anything. You're not like growing a community. You're not investing in different resources and people, right? The most powerful thing you can do today is do whatever you want. Yeah. And tell people that no amount of screeching is going to stop you.
Yeah. Yes. That's it. And that's speech.
That's speech.
Yeah. It's all right, but that's a good. I'd like to do porn with you.
Yes, very much. Porn.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
We should, because it's so interesting, because it's like everything, that nothing exists in a vacuum, but it's a really good like hyper representation of the top-down manifestation of like weakness and subjugation across a population.
OnlyFans, dog. We'll talk about OnlyFans. Talk about Weimar America.
So crazy. It's
talk about Weimar
craziest.
America, let's talk about women getting outed for having OnlyFans while their kids go to Catholic school, and the kids get kicked out of school, and then it's somehow the mom's a victim.
Yeah, right.
Those articles came out.
I know.
They're out there. The California mom, and it turns out all the other moms in her little community are doing it.
Absolutely.
Like, dude.
Yeah.
What
is this? Like, what is this? Why are we like...
How much
and
money...
why are there like cheerleaders
and why are their husbands down for it?
Yes.
Like, because I highly doubt in all these situations the wife makes the money and the husband doesn't. Or the husbands are out of work because of COVID, so they can't make money. And even if it was true, why are you letting your wife hoe herself out on the internet? It doesn't matter if it's your dick. It doesn't matter if it's solo.
I know.
You're still... broadcasting that to the world.
This phenomena bleeds into everything we talk about subjugation, all of it.
It's one thing, and I don't agree with this either, and I think it's fucking gross.
Do you think if a guy who lets someone else fuck his wife is going to be able to stand up to tyranny?
No.
what are we talking about?
No, they're not. There's a great screen cap on Reddit, and someone was posting... my wife, my girlfriend got this for me, and it's a Reddit skinny neckbeard soy boy on a life-size Snorlax pillow.
Yeah.
And the top comment was, "You guys in an open relationship?" And his response was, "Yes, we are." But she got me the present.
Yeah,
oh my god. Dude.
Obviously.
What is happening?
All right, so this is so this is a good place to end.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Good job.
Tune in next week, folks. Porn Olympics.
Good job.